I'm going through stand fatigue right now because JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has way too many of them. Don't get me wrong, stands are great. How JoJo finds new ways to put us on edge with highly creative stands is the most remarkable thing about it. One of my favorite JoJo episodes has Jotaro gambling against Darby the Gambler, and the very next episode, Jotaro plays video games against Darby's brother. The level of imagination that went into this was genius. But still, every episode or two, we get a new stand to fight, and there's no way that doesn't get exhausting at some point. And I think that point is now, because I'm completely apathetic towards the next season of JoJo because it's gonna be the same thing we've watched 1,000 times before. And hey, the next season of JoJo could be the best one yet, but I seriously doubt that. I'm at a point where I wonder if there's anything more JoJo can give. You see, there's no progression with JoJo. All there is a restart button, and we're given a new cast of characters who then fight 1,000 stands for a whole season. That's worked out up to now because every season had something the last didn't. The first season of JoJo had Hammond. Stardust Crusaders introduced stands. Diamond is Unbreakable had one of the greatest villains in anime history. Golden Wind is simply the best season, and Stone Ocean is where the problem begins. First off, I'd like to say that Stone Ocean was only bad because it was just bad. The first two parts of Stone Ocean were actually pretty good. The third part was unwatchable. But let's imagine the third part was good. I'd still have a problem with Stone Ocean because it didn't offer anything I hadn't seen in the previous seasons. I think JoJo's format of new season, new JoJo, let's throw 1,000 stands at them is its greatest problem. And let's be real, there isn't a perfect story in the world. Every story has its own problems, and this is JoJo's. And look, if I were to get a new season of JoJo as it is, forever, I'd take that deal. The point I'm trying to make isn't that JoJo is bad, but rather that it could have been something else that potentially could have been better. So what is that something else it could have been? Hammond is a technique that, through a special kind of breathing, can produce an energy identical to the sun's energy, and the source of this energy comes from the user's blood. Hammond was a pretty elegant power system. All Hammond users had a way about them, a mastery over their own bodies that was so satisfying to watch. Like when Lisa flipped off a boat and stood on a paddle in the middle of a lake. That was actually pretty brilliant, and stands took that away from us. And you know what? Over the years, I found that I prefer the first season of JoJo over the later seasons. In my opinion, the first season of JoJo is peak JoJo. Dio was amazing, and the Pillarmen were even better. It's actually pretty upsetting how underrated the Pillarmen are. They were incredibly well written. Dio was honestly two-dimensional. All I liked about him was his whole rivalry with Jonathan Joestar. Unlike two-dimensional Dio, the Pillarmen weren't evil for evil's sake. They had a purpose and a code. I actually found myself half rooting for Wham when he fought Joseph Joestar because I thought he was a great guy. The Pillarmen weren't exactly evil. They were just bad for humanity. Doesn't that sound complex? Well, that's because they were complex villains. And in that Pillarmen arc, Joseph doesn't fight endless enemies before getting to them. No, this arc focused on the story 100% of the time. And there were some truly epic moments here that have stayed with me for years. Like when Carr went to this house and sensed the exact position of all his enemies, then with just one swing of his bone blade, stealthily takes them all out through the wall. That was so cool. And I didn't have to wait to see Joseph fight 100 pointless villains before experiencing that moment. We just got to the point, and that's what I loved about JoJo's first season. And that's what I think JoJo should have been. Succinct. Okay, back to Hammond. If Hammond is so great, why didn't we stick with it? Well, JoJo's mangaka Hirohiko Araki said that he felt he'd done everything he could with Hammond and that stands were a lot more versatile. I couldn't disagree with him more. I'm of the strong opinion that Hammond is limitless. I know a lot of you believe that Hammond is confined to vampires, but I don't think so. I mean, what does walking on water have to do with vampires? Or wall crawling? Or having infinite stamina? These are just some of the things we saw Hammond could do in the first season of JoJo. So why stop with vampires in the Pillarmen? JoJo's Hammond users could fight against other such forces of darkness, and these antagonists don't have to be the same old mythical beings and creatures. Stand users, for instance, could be one of the antagonists. There was a lot of potential here, simply because Hammond was, again, a limitless power system. Lisa could hypnotize people with her abilities. Maybe this can translate to telepathy. Hammond users could also heal themselves. Maybe this could translate to invulnerability. They also had superior strength. Maybe this could translate to super strength. I can go on and on. Point is, there's no telling what you can or cannot do with Hammond. But at the same time, Hammond can't exist within Jojo as it is. For Hammond to work, it needs progression. It needs a single character that builds up his abilities and mastery over it. If a character is built up only for him to be replaced in the next season, all that progression is thrown out the door. So how do we make Hammond work for Jojo? What if Hammond took the Hunter x Hunter approach? Hunter x Hunter's Nan power system has categories, so it translates differently from person to person. Gon is an enhancer, so he hits things. Kilo is a transmuter, so he can manipulate matter and energy. And Kurapika is a specialist, so he has control over multiple Nen categories. When Hunter x Hunter switches its protagonist from arc to arc, we don't feel like we've lost any progression. So Hunter x Hunter can do exactly what Jojo does pretty flawlessly. Hammond, however, can't, because it's one thing. A single mountain with a single peak. But what if we diversified Hammond by giving it multiple paths, with each path having its own peak? In other words, categories. Then every Jojo would have their own thing. A mind reader Jojo in one season, and superhuman strength Jojo in another. I can even picture a Jojo who's enhanced his mind to a point where they're practically Sherlock. And that season of Jojo would lean more towards mystery. My point is, Hammond was great, and I would have loved to see what Hirohiko Araki would have done with it. And dare I say it, I think it would have been a lot better than Stan's.